like to call this meeting of the Rocky City Council to order. We do normally begin our meetings with a prayer. At this time, I'd ask Councilmember Lois Waddington to lead us in prayer. If you're able, please stand.
May everyone bow their head, please. Father God, we just want to thank you. We want to lift up your name in this meeting today. We want to thank you, Lord God, for where we are right now in the city and where you're leading us to. We thank you, Lord God, for the years of service, because for some of us tonight it will be our last meeting here that we will preside in. And so, Lord God, we just thank you that during our terms, Father, that we thank you for the peaks and the valleys. We thank you for the bitter and the sweet, because all of it works together for the good of our own lives as individual leaders and the good of the city. And so we want to thank you for that. And we want to lift your name up and continually pray and ask your blessings on our people. Continue to bring prosperity to the city. We see you working. We see changes and improvement. And so we just pray that we'll continue. We thank you for the new leaders that will come in our places. And we thank you, Lord God, that you are over them, with them, that you will direct their paths as you have directed us. And so we give your name praise for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
City Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Knight.
Here.
Blackwell.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Watkins.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
And Miller.
Here.
If you came in, there was an agenda in the box over here. I'm not sure how many you had. If there weren't enough, then please share with your neighbor. We do go by the item agenda. We're on item number 4 now, approval of the minutes of our regular scheduled meeting of the City Council, which was held November 11th, 2019. Are there any corrections or to those minutes? If not, then they'll stand as submitted to you. Item number 5, this is a consideration of minutes on a regular scheduled committee of the whole meeting. This was on November the 11th, 2019. The first one was an auditor presentation from Kerry Dunlop from Martin Starnes and Associates, who does our annual audit. 2 was a Census 2020 presentation. This was from Archie Jones. We got an update on our Motorola maintenance contract from Rusty Owens. One-stop update. This is from Will Deaton. And again, there was a report, no action, but we are moving in the direction of having a one-stop shop in our development department. 5 is boards and commission, Pam Casey, recommendations for appointments and contingent upon personal history forms. And 6 was a closed personnel session. Recommended actions to approve the minutes and recommendations.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rogers, second by Councilmember Joyner. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Item 5 is approved. Item 6 is a community update from our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council, and also the public. Just a few items to bring you up to speed on. Customers in wards 3 and 4 recently experienced a few power outages while the substation was being rebuilt, and Energy Resources began replacing a 40-year-old transmission pole. The transition pole replacement project has been completed. Transmission poles, excuse me. There remains substation maintenance work that will be completed by the end of the year, and this work is expected to have a minimal effect on system reliability. So we wanted to make sure that everyone understood what was happening when the lights dimmed or when power outages occurred. Secondly, the Parks and Recreation Department received a matching funds grant of $2,639 from the North Carolina Arts Council Grassroots Arts Grant Program. This grant must be spent on Nash County or local regional multicultural artists. So there'll be more details coming about very soon for artists who have an interest in this. Of course, the annual Christmas parade will be held Sunday, December the 1st, starting at 3:00 p.m. in downtown Rocky Mount. There will be features of floats, marching bands. I think the city council, mayor and council will participate in the parade. and much more. Finally, for the first time, the Imperial Center will be open the Friday after Thanksgiving from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Saturday, November the 30th. First Friday and the lighting of the Imperial Center tree will be held on Friday, December the 6th from 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. Event includes carriage rides, music, and an appearance by Santa. The admission is free for this. In the theater at the Imperial Center, Langston Hughes' Black Nativity, a gospel song play featuring an all-local cast, will run for 2 weekends, December the 6th through the 8th and December the 13th through the 15th. Showtimes are 7 o'clock p.m. Fridays and Saturdays, with matinees on Sundays at 2 o'clock p.m. And tickets are available at the Imperial Center for purchase. The Winter Wonderland will be held on Sunday, December the 8th from 1 to 5 p.m., featuring music, a sledding hill, carriage rides, and a visit from Santa. And again, the admission is free. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Moving on to items number 7. I'm glad to have Roy Jones with us. He's the CEO of Electric Cities, and I think he has some presentation for the city for their Rocky Mountain Energy Resources Department. Roy, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well this holiday season. I'm actually pleased to be here today. I'm presenting an award on behalf of the American Public Power Association. It's the Smart Energy Provider Award. And Rocky Mount's being recognized in 3 different areas. First of all, in some of the things that you all do with load management. I know we've got the entire load management team here today to allow customers to put devices on their homes, to be able to shave those peaks every month. And I think it saves customers here in Rocky Mountain about $6 million a year by that load management program. So a tremendous savings to the customers. The other area that is being recognized by the American Public Power Association is the way that you all focus on sustainability in the environment and the things that y'all are trying to do with renewables, residential solar, community solar, and all those kinds of things to really promote and have a good, clean, sustainable environment here in Rocky Mountain. And the third area is the outstanding customer service that you all provide, and the load management team, customer service reps. You all have policies and procedures that have been adopted that allows those customers that have issues to be able to come in and work with you all, with the customer service reps, to work out things that benefit the customers here in the community. A little bit about this award. Nationally, there are over 2,200 public power communities that own their own electric system, like here in Rocky Mountain. In North Carolina, there are 72 public power communities like Rocky Mountain. There are 2 public power communities getting this award in North Carolina, and you're one of those 2. So I just want to say congratulations to you all. Congratulations to the load management team for the fantastic job that they do. And I'm glad to be here presenting this award on behalf of the American Public Power Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Chris, you want to come back with our load management team and get a picture with Roy? All of the load management team, why don't you come down and get a picture?
Where that man at? That picture man at? She doing it. Oh, okay, that's right. I don't think it's the telegram, that's right.
Okay, I want to thank all the folks in our Energy Resources Department for the work that they do all the time, particularly when we have storms, and the ability to keep us our lights on and do it in a fairly quick manner. So thank you all for all that you do. Our next item is our petitions to be received from the public. This is the petitions part of the meeting. If you'd like to address the council, you did need to sign up. The sheets are here. Any comments should be directed to the council as a whole and not to individual council members or city staff. It is your opportunity to raise a question or present a request of the council. In most cases, however, council members will not respond to public comments, but may refer the matter to the city manager or staff to follow up. We ask that you come up to the podium, speak in a civil, non-argumentative, and respectful manner, and personal attacks which have the potential to disrupt the meeting will not be tolerated, and you'll be asked to sit down or removed from the meeting. So at this time, I want to call up Warren Daughtridge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Warren Daughtridge. City staff and fellow citizens, I'm a resident of Rocky Mount, and I live in Rochester Court. First, I'd like to say, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Watkins, and Mr. Rogers, thank you so much for your service to our community. May God bless your future endeavors. God bless you. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask for just a little bit of leeway. And it's because of some comments that were made 2 meetings ago that I've not been able to respond to. I won't call any names, but there was a person in this room whose son called my group out and me personally as a white supremacist. And he was applauded for that online, in public. He and others like him think people like me who are only trying to do good are against them. And they need to know one thing and one thing only. 17 years ago, I swore an oath to protect and defend you, to defend all of you, to defend my country with my life if necessary. Today, I'm honorably discharged, but I consider that oath still in effect. I'm currently reading a book titled, You Are Worth It. It's a great read, and maybe you should try it on yourself. It's about a Marine, an American hero, who selflessly threw himself on a grenade to save his teammates. Though mortally wounded, he coded several times. He survived and was awarded our nation's highest honor, the Medal of Honor. Mr. Mayor, Mayor-elect, City councilpersons-elect, and my fellow citizens, it's time to cut the crap. It's time to come together as a community team. It's time to recognize we are all in this together. It's time to stop blaming others for which none of us can control. It's time to recognize teamwork starts with you and with me. It's time to commit to jump on a grenade for each other when it becomes necessary. It's time to recognize you are worth it, just like Mr. Carpenter's worth it. It's time to recognize that we need to drop the divisive dialogue. It's time to work together to make Rocky Mount the jewel of the East. This little town on the banks of the Tar has everything it takes to be the example for not only Nash County, Edgecombe County, North Carolina, but the United States in whole. We have the ability to show them all how teamwork makes the dream work for the ultimate benefit of everyone. Thank you for your time, and may God bless and love Rocky Mount. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to respond to that.
You ought to.
I'm responding to that. I will. First of all, I've tried my best to be intelligent, respectful in my communication and dialogue, and honest at all times. I have a 40-year history almost in Rocky Mount of my work, my heart, my commitment to my Christ, and this commitment to this city. My children have grown up in a household where they have seen their dad disrespected, called names, made fun of on your website, your social media site, and other people committed and connected to you. And when you come here in this public square, inferring comments that I know who you're talking about, my son said, he responded to black and white dialogues that were made on your social media site. You can shake your head all you want to.
That's
sir.
right.
It's in black and white and it's documented. I never responded to any of those comments because I choose not to fight in that arena. I stand behind the work that we do. The city is prosperous because of the people sitting up here and the folks that we engage with and work with throughout every sector of this city. And if you want to deny that there is a racialized element in all of the city of Rocky Mount, and if you want to deny that folk have come down to this city intentionally attacking leaders of color, policies that we've held, and if you want to deny that the comments that have come here have not been racialized, then I'll let you sit with that truth. Because a lot of other ears and a lot of other eyes have heard and read the words that have come out of your mouths and statements that many of you have made. And to think that you can say whatever you want to say and do whatever you want to do and not be held accountable for that is incorrect. And if you want the negative talk to stop, then stop throwing the grenades.
Amen.
Say that again.
My father, my uncle, every uncle that I have served in the military. Every one of them. I know what heroes look like. I come from a family of heroes.
Better preach.
I have chosen to work my public service in this sector. And as a dad of a young man growing up, trying to be socially conscious and true to his convictions and intelligent in his discourse, as a dad, you will not cross that line with me, sir.
Come on now.
I'm my son's father. I defend and support him because he's my son. And his observations are not incorrect and not without merit. Now, he's 24 and he's fiery. I wonder where he got that from. But he's 24. And if you want to treat a 24-year-old like a 60-year-old like I am, then you need to go check something else yourself. Okay? But my son is not the elected official. Do not use this podium as a place to deal with your criticism of his words. I am the elected official. And if you have an issue with me, you speak that issue here, sir. Do not attack my family in the public
Yes,
square.
sir.
Point of order,
Man,
Mayor.
be quiet.
5 minutes, point of order, please.
Man, be
I
quiet.
am
You
not
part of the group.
subject to that.
Correct.
I am
That's
an
right.
elected official,
That's the
sir.
problem right there.
I am an elected
Tell him, Bruce.
official.
Correct.
Let's move on.
No, one Daughtridge out of order.
Next one is Johnny
Yeah,
Cunningham,
thank
and then Nehemiah Smith.
Good afternoon, Citizens Council, Mayor. I want to first thank this council. And we've been here 30 years. We've been through a lot of ups and downs together. But I can honestly stand here today. I have no regrets, no shame, and no guilt for what we have done, fighting each other and with each other, back and forth to do one thing, to mend our city. And you know what? We accomplished that. The humbleness that this board has shown me, especially you, Mr. Blackwell. And I'll just repeat it. I said some mean things to that man. I was one of them on that side. And what he just said is correct. But you know what? Humble you. And I thank you because in my life, I've been just a rough person. But I never really knew what humbleness, what it meant. The people they tell us, you're like a sounding timber, like a piece of brass. The thing that's coming from your heart, when you feel it, we know it. But you're so mean. You're so mean with your message. And people are not hearing it. And I didn't know what humbleness was until Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Knight, Mr. Jones, and others, Mr. Danson, forgave me. When I stood here and admit my wrong and my approach, the things that I was saying, not realizing how hurtful it was. Because I was mad. I was stuck on poverty. There's so much black poverty. I was stuck right there. But not one time did you retaliate or say anything nasty, negative, mean, or derogatory or demeaning to me. And you know what I learned? Humbleness. I said, that's humbleness. They're not retaliating. They're not hating me. They're not lashing out at me. They're not throwing hanger nades at me so I got to die on top of it. Because they don't exist. That's what I learned of humbleness.
You got about 30 seconds.
I want to thank you for that today. But there is a element of racism in this city. When a black man is out of uniform at a function to honor him for being a first responder and committed to the city, and he's not recognized because he's not in his uniform, but yet he's a black man, and he was discriminated against. Yes, we do have a racist problem, and it's called white supremacy. And it's alive, it's right here, and they're doing a fake wave for right now.
Thank you. Nehemiah Smith, and then Bronson Williams.
Thank you.
I would first like to say that I had a water main break at my house, 1620 East Virginia Street the other day, and I called the city, and they sent a crew down to fix it. Mr. Taylor Joyner, Zach, and Aaron Danson were those people, and I want to commend them for the great work that they did and just the enthusiasm that they put in. They really represent the city well, and I think we should give people their accolades while they're still around and let you know that they are doing a great job. Next, we need to do some code enforcement here in the city. We need to take care of some code enforcement. On Raleigh Road, if you go down Raleigh Road and you look at Walnut Shopping Center, it is a disgrace. It is a disgrace. You have all this furniture and stuff outside. The thing about this shopping center is that, unfortunately, the back of the shopping center faces Raleigh Road. And on the back of that shopping center, we have all kinds of trash and everything in this neighborhood. Now, this is not the only place. There are a lot of other places, and especially in neighborhoods of color, where it doesn't seem as if the code enforcement is being done. We need to go ahead and tell these people to clean it up or get out. That needs to have these people, and I think that's Ward 4, these people have pride in their community too. But we need to see in the businesses that so-called serve those communities. And it's nothing but a junk harbor. That's all it is. And who is in that front business, code enforcement needs to go down there and tell them to clean it up, and they need to clean it up now. You have people in this very room who live in their area, who worship in their area, who do business in their area, and guess what? It needs to look as nice there as it does anywhere else in the city. And there's some other places that I'm going to bring here and bring before you that need to be corrected too. But code enforcement it's imperative that we get that done in these communities. People feel better about their places and about their communities when they look like they're supposed to. We say that we are here to enrich this whole city and have this entire city be what it's supposed to be. Well, guess what? We need to get some code enforcement on some of these people who don't give a hoot about how their businesses look in certain communities. It just needs to happen. And that's the issue. I know, Madam Manager, I know that you are big on code enforcement, but we really need to get that done. And I thank you so much, and gonna miss some of y'all, but I'll see you.
Mayor,
Yes.
can the city manager respond to some on that, what we've done with those types of code inspection of the building where people can call in to let that be known?
Sure. The city does have a rather aggressive code enforcement process. We'll give a special targeted look along the Raleigh Road corridor. We just caution though that think about what is necessary before code enforcement really gets started, and that is the responsibility of those property owners to really be good, good neighbors, if you will. Sometimes when that doesn't happen, then enforcement has to begin. In North Carolina, however, there are steps and processes that we have to go through, so that process can be quite extensive in trying to effect some changes there. But at the next meeting of the council, I think we'll have an update for Mr. Cook regarding the number of complaints that are currently in the hopper, number of citations and violations that have been cited, and try to give you some idea of what you can expect along this process. But again, just understand that the process is rather lengthy, and we get impatient sometimes too with property owners who don't really step up and take care of their properties as they should.
Thank you.
I would like to just say for the record that there has been an ongoing issue for quite a number of years, Mr. Smith, and we have tried to address it many times, and the city has gone out and enforced it, and they were cleaned up for a while, then they would stop and go back again. So this has been an ongoing issue, and hopefully once we get our commercial zoning piece in place, then we can be more aggressive about doing something on another level. Thank you for bringing it to us.
Thank you.
All right, Bronson Williams, and after Bronson is Dr. Walker.
So, good afternoon to you. One thing I wanted to speak on that is witness. Not quite as fluid with Robert Rules of Order as I probably need to be, but I don't think that a question of point of order could be called from the gallery. I believe that would have to be from someone that is on an elected official from this particular board to take up the matter of point of order. So I'm not sure how the debate stopped, how it ended, because I didn't see another elected body member do such. But nevertheless, and of course, I could be corrected if I'm wrong in that matter after the meeting. Wanted to talk about Rocky Mount City and celebrating success stories. There's so many success stories in our city that too often we're blinded by negativity that we oftentimes forget to celebrate our successes. When we look on social media or look at commercial advertisements throughout our nation, we'll see cities talking about how good it is to be in New York or how good it is to be in California. We need to start celebrating successes like Rocky Mount. I remember years ago you had to ask me why I love Rocky Mount campaign and how that brought a number of community members together talking about the great things they loved about Rocky Mount, why Rocky Mount is a great place to live. And I believe we need to do that again, or in some fashion, and an ongoing thing that we don't stop telling our success stories. Because too often people fail to remember the positive and only horn in on the negative things in our community. I also want to mention that we are planning with WNCR TV to broadcast live the 64th annual Rocky Mount Christmas Parade. For those who would not be able to make it out there, would ask that the city would help us in spreading the word out about that as well, because there are people who are sick and shut in who would celebrate the joy of Christmas. So I want to bring that to their homes as well with WNCR TV Channel 20. Lastly, I want to talk about poverty in our community as we look over the areas in our community, understanding that there is a high level of poverty in our community. And how do we address that? So often it's coupled by what we talk about gentrification, where we move people out, price them out of their homes and neighborhoods, and it becomes rather an unfortunate situation. But I wish and hope that this council will continue its work and the momentum of improving the communities in which people are living in each and every day. One of those things, of course, is economics. Another thing is also ensuring that we have those access to healthy foods in communities as well, to rid ourselves of this food desert that we so often talk about as well. We really want to key in on those positive things in our community and create more success stories for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could our attorney Jeff Rose speak in reference to the point of order? Because there's so many times that that is done to the council members, which is incorrect according to Robert's Rules of Order. So I would wish you would address that at this time, please.
A point of order has to come from the council. It cannot come from someone sitting out there. Further, the ability to run the meeting belongs to the mayor. Point of order may give him some support, but it doesn't give him any legal action that he could not otherwise take in running this meeting.
And with that, before you start, Dr. Walker, I've given everybody a lot of leeway coming up here. I do believe in free speech. I believe in people speaking their mind. What we try to do is control it as much as we could possibly. Sometimes people get emotional. They get passionate about what they're doing. And for those people that may at times feel like I should have stopped somebody, at times, you know, I don't know what they're going to say until they say it. So again, it's one of those things that we don't have to have petitions for the public except once a month. We choose to do it twice because we want to hear from the public. And quite honestly, when I started 12 years ago, we had very few people coming to this meeting. We had very few people addressing the council. We've had some issues in the last couple of years that we've moved through. And again, public dialogue is part of the process. If you don't like it, then you don't need to be here and you don't need to be a part of it, because it is part of the process, and it's not always comfortable, it's not always easy, and it's not always what you want to hear, but it is part of the process. So given that, I think we've done a fairly good job over the years, even though there's some people that may disagree with that. So didn't mean to take your time, Dr. Walton.
Well, I was wondering if that was directed at me in any way, but anyway. My time will start now. Thank you so very much. I've heard some great comments about your service, even though they were attached to some things I didn't quite agree with, but any positive comments about those of you who served, those of you who are serving, I ditto that. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think we should mention more our city manager who is addressing this group too. She's an outstanding person, and I praise God for that. But let me just say something to you. Some of you may get a little bored with my reminding you that 2020 I would have served this community as pastor 50 years. We're having a tremendous celebration 2020. Some of you be involved with that celebration. And I invite you, City, to just do whatever you deem positive and necessary toward this poor preacher who has struggled for those 50 years. It's, I really appreciate the document that the city did on the sanitation workers. There are a lot of things about the city that need to be documented because, as my grandma used to say, heap sees, but few knows. I'm so happy that you are acting on these sanitation workers, and I just want to say parenthetically that I hope you don't try to rush through that, because there was a tremendous amount of pain. I know, because I was right in the midst of that. I was a spiritual leader at that time, and social leader also. One final thing that I want to say, and I haven't even looked around to see if my grandson's here, and it really doesn't matter. because what I'm about to say, he didn't tell me to say it. But my experience tell me to say it. I want to get the elephant out of the room. I'm happy that he's going to be on your council. And I am sure he's going to be his own man, and he has been taught down through the years the value of life and the value of people. But I've had some unfortunate experiences.
Yeah, about 30 seconds.
Okay, that is fair one right there, but I have had an unfortunate experience that people many times want you to recuse yourself simply because you have been involved. I was on the battlefield before that boy was born and his dad was born. And I hope that this council and community will allow him to be himself and carry out that which he feels is right for the city and not withhold anything that's good for the city because you think it may affect him. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. We're gonna have Leroy Williams and then Saladen Muhammad.
Good afternoon. Name is Leroy Williams. Thank you for having me and allowing me to speak. The great injustice done in America upon a people is the wiping out of the native Indian and slavery among my people. Let's go forth through for the absence of 40 acres and a mule against injustice of Jim Crow, redlining, and the other America. Therefore, stand on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King words, I'm coming to Washington to get all checked. I heard one say that one cannot serve two masters. Message on Sunday, God will fix it. But prayer without work is dead. On Monday, practice politics, tokenism. The practice of making only a symbolic effort to be inclusive to members of a minority group, especially by repairing a small number of people from underrepresented groups in order to give the appearance of racial equality. I have mad respect for the Native American Indians. Standing on land ownership versus $1.3 billion held by the U.S. Treasury Department. They stand as a unit. Why can't we?
Thank you. Ms. Muhammad. And then after him, Liz Daughtridge will be our last.
Good afternoon. I don't usually identify this way, but 56 years ago, I took an oath and went into the military. And if that gives me some special kind of recognition, as maybe some expect they should have as a result of that, I welcome it. But I'm here to encourage the passage of the resolution for restitution for the 1978 sanitation workers. This restitution resolution follows a resolution of apology by the city of Rocky Mount for an unjust action taken against the 1978, taken by the 1978 City Council against Alexander Evan and the sanitation workers that struggled to support Mr. Evans' fight for justice. Restitution for the 78 sanitation workers action is a serious expression that we welcome and we appreciate. appreciated. It's hopeful that the apology is strengthened by the restitution of resolution, which we feel that's very important. In the lives of working people, and in this instance, African-American workers, we've gotten all kinds of apologies over the years. Apologies for slavery, apologies for this, apologies for that. But we believe that apologies are strengthened when restitution accompanies that apology to show that the city is ready to commit some resources to address the injustice that was done. And finally,
Got about 30 seconds.
I hope that this apology is an indication of a direction of fairness that gives voice to the workers, all of the workers in the city of Rocky Mount, so that they can have a collective voice and speak their piece without fear of retaliation. Thank you.
Daughtridge.
Mayor, Council, good evening. I would also like to extend a big thanks to Mayor Collins and Councilwoman Watkins and Councilman Rogers for your service to Rocky Mount. And I know it's taken a lot of time out of your schedules and your life to serve the citizens of Rocky Mount. So I say thank you for that. And I look forward to the others. I look forward to being up there and working with you and promoting and moving Rocky Mount forward. So please reach out to me anytime you want to, and I'd love to sit down with each of you to talk about what we can work together with and maybe work on with. So I'm going to take the opportunity right now because honestly I did not get to look over the meeting agenda until yesterday. And item number 12, I have a question. I don't know if it's a question or concern or both, but more of a question. I have no problem with the $500,000 being allocated for some housing, but some of the concerns I have, and was there an application process taken on this? Was the grant opportunity advertised to the public? If not, how were potential house developers made aware of the opportunity? For the grant recipients who had promised affordable housing units in exchange for the grant, their grant agreement includes specifics on the rents and length of time the units will remain affordable. Will city staff monitor these units during the affordable period to ensure that the rents and the incomes of the residents meet the goal of affordable housing? Are these grants part of a larger plan, part of the 2019-2020 annual action plan? There's some of the questions that I have now and I will have in the future, and I do think that we need to follow up on these moving forward and keeping up with this, because this is vital to our community, but we also have to be responsible and fiduciaries of the public's money. So I ask that maybe when they get to this item that those questions are answered, and if not, I think it would be prudent to maybe wait until we do have some of that in place. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our petitions to be received from the public. At this time, I'm going to close that item number 8, and move on to item number 9. This is consideration of a resolution confirming the assessment relative to the preliminary assessment roll prepared to recover costs incurred by the city in connection with housing code enforcement. There's only one property there. This was deferred from November the 11th, 2019. I don't know if we were able to come to a resolution on that. Do you know?
I don't know.
I know we deferred it so that she could try to get with the city.
Yes,
Is
I
anybody here
can.
from the street?
Yes, I can provide an update for you on that. I think Mr. Bescher, along with his staff and the police department, did meet with Dr. Pulley. Chris, do you want to provide a more succinct update? they're still working on this, and so it would be, my recommendation to still pull that, until we get some resolution for Dr. Pulley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Chris Beschler, Director of Energy Resources. There were two issues with regard to 302 Middle Street. The first happened sometime between August 31st, 2016 and September 7th, 2016. While the house was under renovation, it was hit by a car, and there was a police report that was filed. The Rocky Mount Police Department never did find the people who ran into the home, and that case was closed. Subsequent to the vehicle damage, on July 2nd of 2017, the house burned. And it was burned so badly that the housing code case was opened and that process was started. It went through the entire process, and the owner, Dr. Pulley, did approach the Community Appeals Board. They upheld the demolition of the house, but she asked for a 60-day extension. It was upheld in November 16th of 2017, and the Community Appeals Board offered her a 60-day extension to January 15th of 2018. So since the public meeting on November 11th, our community code supervisor did speak with Dr. Pulley. She seemed to be focused on why the vehicle case was never closed, because she felt that the police did have suspects, but that they were never brought to trial. So in Kelly Cook's case, there was really no definitive answer that she could give about what kind of restitution with respect to the assessment that she wanted. The Rocky Mount Police Department also reached out to her and her daughter, and what they did was they tried to explain what the situation was. What the issue was there were two neighbors who the police looked at to help figure out who actually did hit the house. And Dr. Pulley mistakenly thought that they were the people that actually did it, when indeed they were just trying to help with the investigation, but they were neighbors. And again, they didn't have any information to supply the police. So as the city manager mentioned, now that Dr. Pulley and her daughter understand why that case was closed, our recommendation would be to go back to Dr. Pulley and ask her what she's looking for, what consideration she's looking for with respect to the assessment.
Any questions for Chris?
Chris, would you repeat the outcome of the assessment? Could you just kind of sum it up? I missed some of that.
Sure. The recommendation was to demolish the house because of the amount of damage that is sustained during the fire. They went through the process, and ultimately it went to the Community Appeals Board. The Community Appeals Board upheld the demolition of the building at their meeting on November 16th of 2017. Dr. Pulley was in attendance at that meeting, and she asked the board if she could get a 60-day extension for that, which the board did grant her. And the date, that 60-day period ended on January 15th of 2018.
The recommended actions is adopt the resolution confirming the assessment, but I don't know if we're still trying to work with Dr. Pulley, and if so, is there a timeline, a deadline that y'all want to put on this?
Yes, I think by next council meeting, we will have reached out to her and tried to get a resolution on that.
So the recommendation is to defer this again until our next meeting, is that correct?
That's a recommendation from staff,
All right.
yes.
Do we have an agreement with that from the city council? All in favor say aye. All opposed? All right, thank you, Chris. Item 10 is consideration of the tax releases and refunds. There's a Schedule A and Schedule B there. The recommended action is to approve the release and a refund of taxes listed on A and B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Blackwell, second by Councilmember Knight. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Item 10 is approved. Item 11 is consideration of a resolution authorizing restitution in the amount of $1,000 to employees terminated for their participation in the 1978 sanitation worker strike. The restitution not to exceed $36,000. The recommended action is to adopt the resolution. Motion by Councilmember Knight, second by Councilmember Joyner. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I'd like to call the city manager because again, we don't have checks up here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The idea of presenting the families with some form of restitution really originated at the showing of the documentary. It's a way of closing the loop or turning the page on a very troubling period in this city's history. And I will tell you that as city manager, perhaps, if I was city manager in 1978, perhaps we wouldn't be here today. But I wasn't. I just left NLC conference and had heard one of the most moving testaments from an entertainer by the name of Common. And what he left me with was that we need to have leadership that is led by love. And so what you are witnessing today is a love of our history, regardless of how great it is or how, and sometimes how troubling it is. And so this $1,000 really does not, it doesn't compensate, but it does attempt to recognize the sincerity of the apology that was offered, the documentary that was done, but to say to the families, and what I was most appreciative of is that these were employees who were literally making $3.16 an hour in 1978. $3.16 an hour for public service, leading and performing with love. So in our analysis of the future value of $3.16, after 41 years, for 1 week of not working, amounted to $460 some odd dollars a week. Think about that. So we decided to, as a staff, to recommend that we double that. And we know that it's not ever enough to thank public servants for the sacrifices that they make, not only individually, but also for the households who had to endure the loss of salary for that 1 week. So, Mr. Mayor and members of council, it is our recommendation that we award each one of those individuals. We have done our best to scour our records to find individuals. We have the names of these individuals that we'll share. These are the people that we could find, and if there are others, please let us know. But what we're looking for are the employees who were terminated and then rehired. And so, to English Edmondson, Rudolph Edmondson, the widow of Alexander Evans, Leonard Giles, Willie Moody, William Moore, Robert Pittman, Roosevelt Pittman, and Robert Smith. Those are the individuals that, through our search and research of our records, that we could find. And we have promissory letters for you. We promise to provide you with the award very quickly. And I thank the mayor and council for supporting the resolution. And we hope that this gesture to the families is a sign that we certainly appreciate your sacrifices and hope that we never have to repeat that history again. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was approved, item number 11. Item number 12 is the consideration of funding allocations for the following agencies that submitted proposals for the Housing Incentive Grant Assistance. I'm not going to read all these, they're on your agenda. The recommended action is to approve the funding as recommended. So I entertain a motion, and if anybody would like to address
Well, Mr. Mayor, before
Yes.
you, I would like to ask the manager to talk about the process a little bit. Please, we'll go through.
This is a project or a program that is really one of the councils. The staff certainly supports the council in gathering information. But once the information to include an application is gathered, that information is turned over to a committee, a subcommittee. In this case, this year, it was Councilman Blackwell, Mayor Pro Tem Rogers. No, sorry, I put them on it. I'm sorry, Councilmember Knight, Councilmember Joyner, Watkins, and the Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Rogers. And so they review the information that comes in, and we simply as staff will recommend to the council what they have recommended. And so this is what you see here. But in our information this year, we did provide a return on investment for the city's investment into these projects. Again, I would say, while in many respects, the return on investment is very long-term. But when we think about what happens when investment is not made into these communities, there's no price for that. So we just finished talking about, demolition. And every council member knows the negative impact that demolition can have on a neighborhood as well. So we're very fortunate here in the city to have people who are willing to step up. I will tell you that some of the criteria that was discussed is how much the developer is willing to put into the property, not just what is the city gonna give me to move this project along. So that was certainly one of the criteria, a very important criteria. We want to make sure that people have skin in the game, so to speak. We want to make sure that these properties are located in areas that have been identified by the council as redevelopment areas, for example. So there are a number of criteria that go into this process that the council subcommittee considered. And I do support and recommend that the council approves this money. This is general fund money, which augments, if you will, the funds that we receive from HUD. So this is what helps the city to advance their programs for providing quality, decent, affordable housing for our residents.
Madam City Manager, in response to a question that was asked by a citizen, can you speak to the requirements that the units be maintained as affordable housing?
I don't think that I think in the application that question is asked. We certainly, at the housing staff level, will continue to monitor that to make absolutely sure that it is. So this program patterns the housing urban development program where that kind of requirement is in place.
So it incorporates the same requirements that HUD has in place?
Very similar, and that would be one. Yes.
Okay. I do want to thank the members of council and mayor who served on that evaluation committee and studied the options. But and I'm pleased that we at least moved so far as to have an internal rate of return requirement. My long rusty knowledge of internal finance, internal rate of return and those finance matters vaguely tells me that internal rate of return is used for the purpose of evaluating a number of projects so that you choose the one with the highest IRR, but also that when I look at the internal rate of return of 2%, I believe in the case of the Berkshire community one, and the payback period is 74 years, we have to acknowledge to ourselves that in 74 years, maybe 2 or 3 roofs will be required on that property. You know, because a roof only lasts maybe 25 years unless you spend a lot more money to get higher rated roofing materials. So I'm concerned about the low rate of return on our tax dollars, but I acknowledge the value of maintaining these properties and not having to tear them down. But a point I have made, I think ever since I've been on council, is that we get much more bang for our buck if we would enforce housing code from the get-go and require property owners to keep them up, because it's just a slippery slope downhill to demolition if you don't require that they do that. Thank you.
Right. I would just comment to say that this is the first year that we have considered the return on investment, recognizing that, you know, it's many decades out. I think the point that we want to make, though, however, is just think of what would happen to the property if there was no incentive funds that are available. And to your point, these are the ones that can very quickly, turn into disrepair. They can be very challenging to repair. So the incentive is really there to encourage the owners of these properties to go ahead and take care of them before code enforcement has to even get involved. And that goes back to an earlier comment that I made about the responsibility of the property owners. But you know, sometimes people need help to fix their properties. And thankfully we have in our community citizens who own these properties. They're quite challenging. I'm sure that many of them will tell you how challenging it is, not only to repair, but to find people who are willing to live there and maintain the properties properly. So it's a wonderful program. This is the first year that we have increased the funding from $150,000, I would say, to $500,000 that's available. And that's just a signal of this council's commitment to providing decent, affordable housing in our city.
Mayor, I'll second the motion.
All right.
Motion on the floor, but I want to add a couple of comments. We have been doing this a long time. This is the largest amount we've ever done at one time, but I've been involved in it myself, maybe by default, somewhat. But I was quite frankly impressed with the process this year. And I think it was Councilman Blackwell, maybe that's why you were getting confused by the manager, Reuben. who made the suggestion about adding some analytics to this process, about investment of the city relative to the investment, the overall investment, and some kind of return on investment calculation. I agree with Councilwoman Miller about the low return, but community development type work is really hard to do a traditional return on investment calculation. There are so many subjective factors in it, and I can tell you, if we had the entire Keenan Flagler Business School here this evening, they couldn't do any better job of figuring out than we did. But I applaud Reuben for adding that. I think we can add to those analytics over the years and make it even better in terms of prioritizing. And the other thing that was done here for I think the first time in terms of advertising and trying to make sure we didn't miss something, is that if you look at the distribution of these projects, they are across the city. And I think that's a step in the right direction too. We always want to help those areas that need it the most, but this year a much more comprehensive approach was taken to this effort. So I'm proud of the work the city has done in this regard and the impact that these projects will have.
And a brief comment, I'm quite pleased as well, and when you look at Rocky Mount historically, and you look at the studies which has been done here, that we have 14 impoverished neighborhoods, and when you look at wards across this city, especially in Ward 1, 2, 3, and 4, who have been underserved as far as allocations throughout our history, that this council has been very proactive. When we took office in 2003, demolition was 60,000, and we increased it to 200 and some thousand because we had a lot of boarded up homes. And now we find ourselves fast-tracking, looking back, that the houses that were demolished, that we have vacant lots in these wards, which is very hard to get private people to come in and invest in those neighborhoods. So the council came up with the incentive money to help restore and bring back housing in these challenged neighborhoods. We have a lot of work to do, and I know that one of our main objectives will be to have a housing bond because the need is so great. The need is so great all across the city, but historically, especially in the African American community, the need is greater and it's been underserved, and so we're trying to make sure that all of Rocky Mountain is a beautiful, safe place to live.
We have a motion.
Our segment with Sue Perry and our community organizations that really live in these communities has literally been given an opportunity to participate in securing and managing their community. And rather than having everybody talk about how bad it is, they have a story about how good it is. And they're the one that stand there.
Right.
And I just invite you, public and all of us, to not just talk about these communities, but there are people in these communities that we call impoverished. If you have spent all your life and now you're retired, and all you hear about is your community being called names that do not identify what you feel about it. And when you've been given an opportunity through these incentives to turn your situation around, you didn't ask nobody to come in and do it. You're willing to do it yourself and turn your community back into home ownership and not slum landlords. I appreciate this council, and while I'm saying this, thank you for those that have served, Councilmember Watkins, our mayor, and Tom sitting here with you. I want to thank you for this incentive to give our communities an opportunity to care for themselves and manage themselves to the place where they want to be. Thank you.
Anybody else? Are we good? Thank you. I've been all great comments, and again, we had a motion by Councilmember Knight, seconded by Councilmember Rogers. Any other discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Item 12 is approved. Item 13 is the consideration of a grant closeout certification and federal financial report. It's closing the grant years from 1995 to 2010 for the Home Investment Partnerships Program. The recommended action is authorize the mayor to execute the certification and federal financial report on behalf of the city.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Watkins, second by Councilmember Miller. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. This time I'd like to call on first our city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to report on 3 claims which have been resolved. All of them involve the event center. The first one in the amount of $23,848.33 was paid to Lou Visions and C.T. Willie. It involved a reunion that went not as well as we would have liked for it to have gone. Louis Nettles was involved in that. He is the one, some of you may recall, who spoke to the city council several times about the issues he had with his reunion. But in any event, that's the first one, and that claim has been resolved. The second one is with Team North Carolina, Inc. That is a gymnastics event, which grew out of a gymnastics event. There were issues with that as well. We hope those people will come back, and that settlement is in the amount of $13,202.41. The final one is for the Phillips Bricks Alumni Association. They had an event at the event center, and they were promised certain things which did not arrive, primarily, I believe, a stage before their reunion, and that claim was settled in the amount of $1,500. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rose. Also, Councilmember Blackwell, wanted you to recognize him.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And I got 3 separate items I'd like to tonight at the dais. One is, while we're talking about the events in a not so positive manner, we've had to make settlements. It's been a great boon to our community, and it's going to be a great leverage, I believe, and jumping point for increased return back to all of Rocky Mount. And I think when all of us together in this community have helped create the vision, even those who were not supportive of the vision, help perfect the vision in their critique and criticism. And now it's on all of us to make it work great. There's a person that I don't think that we've all adequately recognized who was important in seeing this come to pass. And I would like to propose that we name the lobby of the Rocky Mount Event Center after former city manager Charles Penny, and that we give him the honor of that dedication sometime in 2020, just as we did with the train station project. And we named the lobby of the train station after Peter Varney, who was a assistant city manager at that time. And so I would like to make a motion to name the lobby of the event center the Charles Penny Lobby of the Rocky Mount Event Center.
Second.
Second.
Any other discussion?
Third.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That's approved.
That's my first item. The second item I've not discussed with anyone, but listening to the excellent introduction that our city manager gave related to the city sanitation workers who not only sacrificed their jobs, but their dignity was compromised. But their work of standing up, even when they were falsely accused, and going forward in the action of not allowing anyone to bully or intimidate them because they were right, not only changed Rocky Mount, it changed this entire state. And I think it's more than appropriate, especially for those of us who have worked together and labored together for the last 16 years, that we close out the legacy with naming the building that the Public Works headquarters is located, the Alexander Evans Public Works Complex, so that forever we can remember the contribution that those men made and the future that they've given us all.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That's approved.
Thank you. And then my final
Yes.
remark is I want to echo Richard Joyner's comments about, and I'm a little emotional right now, working with the 8 of us. We've been a great team. We haven't agreed about everything. Lord knows we fought about a lot. But we worked together. We always worked it out. Nobody got everything they wanted, but we made sure nobody was left out. And I gotta say, I've been proud to be a member of this team. And I'd like to offer a resolution of respect and gratitude to our mayor and our 2 retiring council members, Lois Watkins and Tom Rogers, for providing outstanding service to the city of Rocky Mount. And I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just want to say I enjoyed working with you, Mayor Cone, and Councilmember Rogers. Did I get everybody? Yeah. Lord, you're so quiet. Still having you on the dais with us. Councilwoman Watkins, I just want to say that you all were in the fight. We were in the fight together when we tackled the giant of the utilities. It was the big elephant in the room. But we all had the courage to stand together and take on Duke and Progress Energy. The same with the redevelopment of downtown and housing, we stood together. And regardless of what the media say, social media said that we were polarized, I can count maybe on one hand that we voted down racial lines. And if it was down racial line, it was something that wasn't sort of minimal. And we all worked together. And I just want to say, from my heart, I appreciate it. And that your presence and time and dedication will truly be missed. And I will hope that the incoming council will take on the same spirit that you all have embraced, that we work together for one Rocky Mount. I just want to thank you publicly. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go into a closed session for attorney-client privilege and personnel matter, first off, I'd like to thank my wife, Catherine, for being here tonight. Thank you for all your support. And in addition to the council, I really want to thank the employees of the city of Rocky Mount. You have a different perspective when you're not always engaged on a day-to-day basis. And I can tell you the employees of this city do an incredible job. I know that a lot of the department heads are here today. Hopefully you can relay this message back to the folks that work with you in the different departments. Everything gets done in this city. Everybody may not always agree, but I can tell you on a day-to-day basis, the people that work for the city do an incredible job. And again, it's bittersweet. In this council, again, we've done a lot. Not always agreed, as Reuben said, but what happens in life is you make a decision and then you move forward, and you don't look back and keep second guessing yourself. And I think sometimes that's what a lot of us do. You make a decision, but you're always backtracking and trying to rethink things, and you just can't do that in life. You gotta move forward. So hopefully at times when things, we didn't always agree with things, you made the decision and you moved on. But personally, I want to thank the council, the city manager, but I really want to thank the citizens of Rocky Mount as well. You know, again, this is a public forum, and it's been challenging at times, quite honestly with you, but it's been a great experience to me. I hope I'm a better man for doing this, but I couldn't have done it without my wife and the support of the folks in Rocky Mount. Thank you. And now I need a motion to go into a closed session. All in favor, say aye. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight.